Some of the biggest fictional names in scary cinema have made some truly bizarre cameos over the years in places nobody honestly expected them to turn up. You can hear about 10 of them right here, but one list simply wasn't enough to contain this fascinating phenomenon. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Horror, and here are 10 more horror characters that appeared outside their own movies. Number 10, Billy the Puppet, Scary Movie 4. Advertised as the final chapter of the trilogy, Scary Movie 4 brought this series of comedy parodies of beloved horror franchises to a close. Until, the fifth one. This movie, which starred the likes of Anna Faris, Kevin Hart, and Leslie Nielsen, went one step further than homage, bringing an actual horror legend to serve as a major antagonist. The film opens with a familiar scene, two men chained to a wall in a creepy room somewhere. Only this time, the men in question are basketball superstar Shaquille O'Neal and daytime TV legend Dr. Phil. As the two ponder their situation, a TV screen bursts into life, revealing their captor to be none other than Billy the Puppet from the Saw franchise. Usually the calling card of John Kramer, Billy is now the main man, instructing his two celebrity prisoners to saw off their feet before the room they're in fills with toxic gas. Dr. Phil obliges but ends up sawing the wrong foot off by mistake. Oh, how we laughed. Billy was a great addition to this franchise, and it was nice to see him take center stage. If only Scary Movie 4 had reviewed better, eh? What's your favorite scary movie moment, folks? You let me know in the comment section down below. Number 9, Jason Voorhees, South Park. South Park has never been one to shy away from poking fun at popular culture, or anything for that matter. In the show's 11th season, 3 episodes are dedicated to the boys' trip to Imagination Land, a world populated entirely by fictional characters. Whilst this seems like fun at first, things quickly go downhill when some of the more notorious residents of the realm come out to play. One of the members of the bad side of Imagination Land is none other than Jason Voorhees, the hockey mask wearing, knife swinging antagonist from the Friday the 13th film series. In true South Park fashion, Jason is not the silent killer seen in the movies. Instead, he speaks in a very effeminate tone. This was 2007 after all. Jason's most memorable moment in the episode comes when he talks about removing the eye of Strawberry Shortcake, which he describes as super hardcore. He's later defeated alongside the rest of the villains when the good characters in Imagination Land rise up. This episode is completely mad, even by South Park standards, and a cameo from Jason is actually one of the more sane things about it. Number 8, Jack Skellington, The Princess and the Frog. This one is a little tenuous. Anyone who has seen Disney's 2009 film The Princess and the Frog will no doubt remember the nefarious Dr. Facilier, thanks in part to his excellent song Friends on the Other Side. Voiced by Keith David, himself no stranger to horrors, Facilier uses his voodoo magic to manipulate the events of the movie, intending to obtain a large fortune and rule New Orleans with an iron fist. Naturally, this doesn't happen. It is a Disney movie after all. When the Mad Doctor first summons his aforementioned ghoulish buddies, they manifest as shadows on the walls. If you look very closely, you'll be able to spot that one of the shadows has a very familiar outline. The tall shadow with the round eyes in the far left-hand corner is none other than the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, Jack Skellington. Maybe this is confirmation that Jack's reality exists outside of our own, with Facilier able to pull him across the void using his powers. Or considering Disney helped produce The Nightmare Before Christmas, maybe this was just Tim Burton paying them back after a decade and a half. Number 7, The Grady Twins and the Woman in the Bath, Ready Player One. Steven Spielberg's 2018 movie Ready Player One and the novel on which it is based both draw heavily on pop culture nostalgia. So it's no surprise to find there's an entire section of the movie ripped from one of horror's greatest films. The story takes place in a world where, to escape a rapidly decaying Earth, people seek solace in the Oasis, a huge online multiplayer video game. Hero Wade Watts and his misfit band of buddies are searching the game for a special Easter egg when they stumble across a level modeled on Stanley Kubrick's 1980 masterpiece The Shining. Whilst inside the virtual Overlook Hotel, the characters run into the Grady Twins, aka the creepy come and play with us girls, and the horrifying shape-shifting woman who lives in room 237. Jack Nicholson was actually approached about reprising his role as Jack Torrance, but he said no. Oh yeah, and another fun fact, in the book this sequence was actually inspired by the movie Blade Runner instead, but this had to be changed as the producers of the upcoming Blade Runner 2049 thought it might hurt their movie. Number 6, Art the Clown, Bupkis. In 2023, a character that would become a modern horror icon made his feature-length debut, when Art the Clown appeared in the anthology movie All Hallows Eve. The heinous Harlequin then got his own movie, Terrifier, which was followed by a sequel. Both films are regarded as some of the nastiest slasher flicks you'll ever see, which naturally made Art a cult figure, and Art's popularity grew so large that he ended up crossing over with another offbeat icon, comedian Pete Davidson. In episode 8 of the first season of Bupkis, a TV show where Davidson plays an exaggerated version of himself, Art appears to the former SNL star whilst he's in rehab. Pete begins to hallucinate whilst in a sharing circle, imagining that his fellow patients look like the deranged killer, before his delusion is broken by the arrival of Machine Gun Kelly, because sure, why not? David Howard Thornton reprised his role from the Terrifier movies for the show, so clearly someone in the casting team must have been a big fan of Art's work. Cheers for tapping on this video today, folks. Hit that subscribe button down below for more horrifying What Culture videos in your life. Number 5. Carri White, Hell in the Hallways by Ice Nine Kills. US metal band Ice Nine Kills have always incorporated horror into their performances, often paying tribute to classic stories with their onstage antics. Classic literature is also baked into their DNA, as their name comes from a substance from a Kurt Vonnegut novel. So for their 2015 album Every Trick in the Book, they decided to combine the two. Every song on the record is inspired by a famous book, with the likes of Animal Farm, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and Dracula all being featured. The final track, Hell in the Hallways, is a nod to Stephen King's Carrie, as is the accompanying music video. It's a story within a story. A high school bully is forced to relive the story of Carri White, the young girl who uses her psychic abilities to get her bloody revenge on her tormentors. The main portion of the video pretty much follows the 1976 film exactly, only this time with actor Isabel McGinity playing the role. At the end, the teacher who instructed the bully to read the book closes the door to her office, displaying a nameplate that reads "C. White." Now that's how you finish a music video. Number 4. Dracula and Frankenstein's Monster, Doctor Who. Seminal sci-fi show Doctor Who first broadcast all the way back in 1963, and it was a complete Wild West in those early days. One time, the actor who played the Doctor booked a holiday during one of the filming blocks, so the writers made it that his character was invisible during that episode. No word of a lie. Another completely mental thing that happened during the show's infancy was the time the first Doctor and his companions actually met Count Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. Well, sort of. In the season 2 episode The Chase, the Time Lord and his pals are being pursued by the Daleks, when they stumble across the two horror legends, who help them fight their enemies. The good guys then go on their merry way, thinking they've just had a helping hand from two real-life monsters. Actually, the vamp and the creature were just futuristic robots in an abandoned theme park. But for one glorious moment, audiences thought the Doctor had actually been hanging out with two fictional characters. The show is still going, so maybe this will actually happen one day, fingers crossed. Number 3. Annie Wilkes, DirecTV commercial. DirecTV are an American television provider that have been supplying homes with entertainment since 1994. And in 2008, they also supplied the world with one of the craziest and funniest commercials ever made. The ad opens on the famous scene from the 1990 film Misery, where imprisoned author Paul Sheldon gets his ankles broken by demented fan Annie Wilkes. Wilkes places a wooden block in between Sheldon's legs and picks up a sledgehammer. But before she can go through with this heinous act, she turns to the camera and addresses the audience. With actual Kathy Bates reprising her role, Wilkes talks about how her original plan was to cancel her DirecTV subscription, so that Sheldon couldn't watch all of their fancy sports in high def. She eventually backs down from the idea, saying it would be too painful to inflict this on the writer. The voiceover then calls for the viewer to put an end to the torture, as Annie uses the hammer off screen. James Caan is also in the ad, but seemingly only through stock footage. He was clearly more of a Dish Network guy. Number 2. The Illegal Aliens, Looney Tunes back in action. You can always count on the Looney Tunes to attract some bizarre special guests. This is the same crew that made a comedy movie starring a bunch of NBA players, Dennis from Jurassic Park and Bill Murray. In the pinnacle that is Looney Tunes back in action, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck and their two human companions, Brendan Fraser and Jenna Elfman, find themselves in Area 52. You definitely heard that right, that is Area 52. Whilst there, the facility is overrun by Marvin the Martian and a legion of his fellow extraterrestrials, some of whom will be well known to fans of early sci-fi horror. One of the rampaging monsters is the title character from 1951's The Man from Planet X, which is about an alien visitor to a remote Scottish village. Also present is a Triffid from Day of the Triffids, a 1961 film about murderous plants. There's also an appearance from actor Kevin McCarthy, reprising his role as Dr. Miles Burnell from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Even the movie's director has ties to the horror world, as Looney Tunes Back in Action was helmed by Joe Dante, the man behind the camera on Gremlins. Number 1, A Bunch of Killers, Dead by Daylight. In 2016, developers Behavior Interactive unveiled their new online multiplayer survival horror game, Dead by Daylight, which has since gone on to attract millions of players worldwide. The premise of the game is simple. One player takes on the role of the killer who has to hunt down and slay 4 survivors to appease a demonic being. It's a lot of fun, especially when you get to play as some of your favorite villains from across horror history. Dead by Daylight's popularity has led to a number of DLC packs featuring famous horror characters being introduced. Some are licensed, allowing wannabe slashers to play as the likes of Ghostface, Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Leatherface, Pinhead, and Sadeko Yamamura / Samara Morgan from The Ring. It's not just the baddies that get to have fun either, as classic horror survivors are also available, including Laurie Strode from Halloween, David Tapp from Saw, and Ash Williams from Evil Dead. With Dead by Daylight continuing to grow in popularity, expect even more of cinema's most notorious characters to join its ranks. Funnily enough, a film version of the game is currently in development too, which will bring the whole thing full circle. How nice.